Hi, welcome back to the channel. My name is Lisa Elvin Stoltari, and I am a genealogist and a passionate traveler. I'm so happy you're here with us. This is my channel, How Roots Will Travel, and over the last year or so, I've been doing mini biographies on les filles du roi, les filles mariées, really getting to know these remarkable women. And we are currently today on episode 204. Can you believe it? We've come such a long way. There are 700 of them to do, so we've got a long way to go. Before we begin, let me show you ways you can help the channel grow. Subscribe, like, and notify all help that logarithm, that YouTube logarithm. And then ways to help the channel itself expand. Super thanks that we do on YouTube. We also have Patreon, Coffee, and also my PayPal right on my website. You can go there and contribute. All of that helps me keep doing what I do. Now let's get started and see which girl we are featuring in this episode. Now in episode 204, Catherine Senecal is no longer considered an official fille du roi. I'm still featuring her on this series because she did exist. She did contribute. The criteria for being a fille du roi has changed over time, and they're tightening and we'll go into why she would have not been considered a fille du roi. But this was a viewer request, and then when I looked in my files, I realized that the boy next door, that famous boy next door, yes, this is one of his great grandmothers, but guess what? It's also one of mine. I was surprised actually. I had her listed in my tree as something else, and so I kind of dug around, and so yes, she is my great grandmother as well. So let's get to know Catherine a little bit better. Catherine was born in 1649 in a commune called Bénouville in France, which is found in the Normandy region of France and in the département de Calvados. Her parents were Adrienne Senecal and Guillaume Belreville. Now, the church at Bénouville is dedicated to Notre Dame, and it dates from the 12th century. Now, one of the things that's so fascinating about Bénouville is a very small place. It has about 2,000 people. But it was the scene of the June 6, 1944 invasion. The picture is of the famous Pegasus Bridge that was used in that invasion. So obviously it played a key factor. But this is hundreds of years after our heroine is there, but I thought I'd share that information with you. Catherine would sail on La Nouvelle France and would arrive in Quebec City on July 31st, 1670. Later on, she was joined by her father, stepmother, and younger brother Nicolas about 2 years later. This is the point at which they decided that she was no longer a fille du roi because she had she had family. Family came to join her. All the other filles du roi either had parents in France and they were alone, or their parents were dead. So that's the criteria. If your family joined you later, you couldn't be a fille du roi. Not sure I understand, but that's what the deal is. She selected and who selected her was Jean Lafont de Maugret. He was born 1646 in Trois-Rivières, Quebec. He was a native-born Quebecer. And his parents were Etienne Pepin, who was the Sœur de Lafont, and Marie Boucher. Let's talk a little bit about Trois-Rivières. It was only the second settlement of New France. You'll note that Quebec City was formed in 1608. Trois-Rivières, 1634. And it was named Trois-Rivières, otherwise known as Three Rivers, because the St. Maurice River has three channels that form at the mouth of the St. Lawrence. And so it was actually known as Three Rivers for a long time, but ultimately the French kind of recaptured it and recaptured in the sense of, this is our place, you got to call it what it is. And so Trois-Rivières is really how you have to call it. When I was growing up in the 60s, the English called it Three Rivers. We don't do that anymore. As you can see, Trois-Rivières has a very strategic location on the St. Lawrence River, and it helped the new nation to grow and prosper. It also proved to be an important battle in the American Revolution, the Battle of Three Rivers. You can call it that for that. Some of you may have ancestors in this area at that time, and you might be surprised at who would qualify for admission to the daughters or sons of the American Revolution. Do this at the end, but I need to draw your attention to the fact that, Catherine was marrying into a very, very prominent family. So this is important that if this is your descendancy, that you read up on it. And it is about his father, Etienne Lafond. And it is for our French Canadian ancestors. I've put all the links for you. And it is truly a nice little story for you to read. So Jean and Catherine were married in October of 1670. The contract was drawn up at Cap-de-la-Madeleine, which is just a little bit north of Trois-Rivières. Cap-de-la-Madeleine has its founding around 1651 by a man named Jacques de la Ferté, and it is renowned for the Basilica de la Cap, where many miracles have been performed, and people go there as a religious pilgrimage. So it's kind of an interesting place to get married, and not sure if they were married at that place, but certainly the contract was drawn up there. Catherine and Jean would settle at Betska. The history of Betska begins with our old friend Champlain, who met up with a native named Betska in 1609, and by 1612 he had named this area Batisouam. In 1636, the seigneury was granted to Jacques de la Ferté, at which time it was called Madeleine. By 1639, it was divided up and given to the Jesuits. Hence, the area did not really grow until 1666, when settlers began to arrive. Prior to 1670, the inhabitants met at the home of Lieutenant Nicolas Rivard de Lavigne, who happens to be one of my grandfathers. So my two great grandfathers were kind of together. A wooden chapel is constructed by 1684, and the parish of Saint François Xavier de Betska is formed by 1684. So this is what the church looks like today, and it really remains virtually untouched. Seriously, I was just there this summer, and it looks exactly the way I would have pictured Betska looking like. And they would have 8 children in all. First up, we have Marie, who married Aimable Briand and would have 7 children, all of whom would make it. Jean did not marry, but he did have 2 natural children with 2 different women. We have Catherine, who would marry François Cosset and have 7 children, all of whom would make it. François' mother was Marguerite Inouye, who we profiled way back in episode 13. Pierre d'Etienne would marry Jeanne Luneau and had 4 children, all of whom would make it. Jeanne's mother was Marie Bertin, who we have not yet profiled. Marguerite would die at the age of 3. The next Marguerite would marry Jean-Baptiste Courchaine and would have 6 children, but only 1 would survive. Pierre would then marry Jeanne Lefebvre and have 6 children, all of whom would make it. Marie-Renée, yes, she would go on to marry Daniel Thibault and have 5 children, all of whom would make it. And yes, this is my descendancy, as is the boy next door. In fact, for the next 4 generations from this line, we share the same grandparents until finally we split up. He actually is descended from 2 other children of Catherine and Jean. So he's very much part of that Lafond family. This is the 1681 census. We have Jean de Lafond, 35, Catherine, 32. Enfant is Marie, 10, Jean, 7, Catherine, 4, and Etienne, 2. They have 1 gun, 2 bœufs, which means 2 cattle, and 6 about 4 to 5 acres of land. Tragically, Catherine's life would be cut short, and she would die at Betska sometime between 1692 and 1694, between the ages of 43 and 45. She and Jean would have been married 22 to 24 years. By 1729, she would have 75 descendants. Paul would go on to remarry a native woman, but he would not have any children with her. In 1706, he inherited the Seigneurie of Saint-Étienne. He would pass away in 1716 and was buried in May 10th, 1716 in Batsker. Here are some of the resources I love to feature. WikiTree has been one of my favorites of late. I've been finding lots and lots of information and also adding to it as well. So I urge you to have a look at WikiTree, see how it works. It's a little wonky sometimes, but it grows on you. So give it a try. So we end episode 204. Catherine was a remarkable woman. Whether or not she's a Feijoa, she is my great grandma. And I'm so proud of all that she achieved. Her life was, cut short. But in that short amount of time, she gave and gave and gave. And we are ever grateful for her contributions, her sacrifice, and for her determination to make a new life. And I thank you, Grandmama, for making certain that I exist. So thank you, Grandmama, and bless you. And I also want to say thank you to all my patrons and supporters. Without you, I would not have the courage to keep going and do this incredible work that I'm doing in terms of just trying to make sure that every single fille de roi is acknowledged. And now that I'm doing the Fiammarié, the same thing. So thank you, thank you, thank you for supporting my work and for encouraging me. I really, really, from the bottom of my heart, appreciate it. So until I see you on episode 205, au revoir.